I have a little anecdote about earlier on when I met Jim. In my younger years, really younger years, I used to wrestle competitively. And I thought I found a soulmate here in Jim when he said he was into wrestling. But he wasn't into wrestling per se, he was into going and watching professional wrestling. But this ties into Francis Bacon as well, because Francis Bacon dealt with the dynamic of the body in space, and usually in, as Jim has said, the most colorful and seductive space you can imagine. But the other day, visiting Jim in his studio, he's gone into doing wrestlers again. And wrestlers, the figure as it becomes space itself on the plane, allows you the totality of the theoretical stuff that you're doing with the Chapman group because of the volume and the tension and the expression of the body. But it also allows you the freedom of the kind of cursive disruptive line that you use to negate the plane that you're stating. And I think that these paintings bode well for extending these ideas. Do you want to? Can you talk about those paintings a little bit, Jim, or are they too fresh off?
Which ones?
The wrestler series.
The wrestler, yeah.
They're not in the show, but
it's a series I started just around Christmas time. Now I've always dealt with them between now and then. I've always, once in a while, come back to a wrestling picture. And it's just exactly as Terry says, that in my own case, it's almost like a container. Just as in 2006 I did the heads. It's just a container to paint whatever I want to paint. Because what is it? It's a logo, two eyes, no. But it didn't come out that way, of course, because we're doing something more creative. And it's the same with the wrestlers, because they take every imaginable pose and stance and gesture that you could want. And it's really, I do a lot of drawings right at the TV set, but just gestural drawings and kind of things, just quick sketches, which I use to remind myself mostly of things I can do on the canvas. And so it seems the game to be a container in which I can paint anything I want. And some of the wrestling paintings have turned into, you can no longer recognize it as wrestling at all, but it turns into another thing, which is, I think, the way it should go. It's just yes.
Yes, Jim, I'm particularly intrigued by the two paintings to your left there in the center of the wall, and I sense that that's somewhat of a departure or some different kind of exploration into color. I was wondering if you would mind commenting on where you were and where you were going when you were doing those paintings.
Good point, Steve. Thank you. In 1981, there was a departure at the college of what we were doing and into a firm, hard edge abstraction, flat planes and color. And being a team member, I went along with it. It only lasted a year. I had a couple of shows from those years, but from that year. But it was mainly, again, a certain kind of discipline. I was really at the end of it, I thought, well, I did this stuff in the 60s, found it wanting, and moved on. But, as I say, I went through it, and the good thing that came out of that was just what you pointed out, Steve, as a clarification, just as in the 60s, the big acrylics, pure space, color, clean, clear, started to happen again in a more painterly way. So it was sort of in between the hard edge abstraction, and also it introduced the figure game, which I've always dealt with, either portrait or head or full figure. So that aspect of it, I said, okay, I'm going to do what I learned from that year, as disgruntled as I was in a lot of ways, I'm going to learn from that. And that's how the flat colors came in. And that too only lasted, a couple of years maybe, and I was into the more richer game.
I had a quick question, if you don't mind. I was just interested, as someone studying in the 50s in Ontario and then moving out to BC, in general, the idea of landscape is something that seems to eclipse a lot of other forms, and it's something that we're sort of talking about how influence sort of walked in and out of and you seem very good at filtering and trying to come to a vision that is very much your own. But can you talk a little bit about how studying in the 50s, and again, when you revisited landscape later in your career, what were some of your ideas and influences? Did you feel a need to respond to the dialogue that had already been started on landscape in Canada?
Thank you. That's a good question. I don't think what was happening in landscape in Canada was the main force. It was what I was seeing. And quite frankly, and I'm going to be run out of the gallery with this statement, but I prefer the Ontario landscape to the BC landscape. Now, I qualify that. No one threw anything. Here, I feel, in some cases, this is a very strange thing to say, somewhat claustrophobic. We drive up to Port Alberni every once in a while, and I've mentioned this to my wife, that there's trees going by. Every once in a while, it's an open space, oh, I can see the water up there, or whatever. Whereas in Ontario, there's these lovely rolling hills, open vistas. You do get your thickets of forest or bush or not. But I think it's a matter of variety. And I'm sorry, it's my own lacking, but I think that's the reason. I think that it's almost claustrophobic in some cases, which is a strange thing to say with all this sea around us and all the rest of it. But that's just a personal thing of being a social landscape.
Yes, please. Sure. I'm just waiting, I'll run over.